Oh, mate, we're all set to go. So, welcome everyone to another episode of the Deadass podcast, where we capture eulogies and share stories. And today, I've got a friend of mine, Ben Bowes, on. Appreciate you coming on, mate.
Cheers, thanks for having me. I've been wanting to do something like this for a long time. A lot of people have, they've said that I should jump on and tell a bit of a story. So I can't wait to see what we dig into.
Yeah, well, you definitely got some stories to tell, and I'm really excited to have you on. So for the people who are listening, we have an actual mutual point there where both of our wives are actually cousins. So at the family barbecues and the dinners and that, we've caught up regular times. So
not enough, but
it's never enough, mate, is it? So and this leads to the point where you have plans, you've got future plans coming up, and so it was really good that you were able to make the time to come in and have a quick chat to us before your big move and whatnot, what's to come. So I appreciate that time, mate.
No worries, man, no worries.
I'm really interested in getting a bit of a background of your life and about some of the things that you've accomplished over the years, because you do have quite an extensive resume, I would say, of athletic achievements and all the bits and pieces that go with it. And like I was saying on plenty of episodes here, I'd love to getting these stories from people in a sense of capturing these eulogies and stories. So I know you do have quite an extensive background in martial arts, boxing, and then leading on to other things later on down the track. So I want to get an idea, mate, because you have I reckon you must have a really interesting mindset in what you achieve and what you do. So to give us an idea, take us back to you're a young fella, what sort of got you into the sporting stuff that you're involved in as a kid, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I started really young.
Yeah.
You know, I got my family, as long as I know, has been in business. My dad, he still works really hard.
Yep.
And it's funny how from the same upbringing, how me and my brother are so different.
Yes.
You know, the guys that know me, I'm very outgoing, and he's more sheltered, like you know Daniel as well.
Yes, of course. Yep.
And I've been involved with sport all my life, and he was a typical kid with the school sports and all that, but in his adult life there's been no sport. So it all started. I started karate. I first went in when I was 4. You know, my brother was there, so initially I was just started watching and whatnot, and then once I sort of had my bearings a little bit more, and so I started karate out at Gracemere when I was 5.
Yep, cool.
With my brother. My brother he stayed along, and I went through the ranks out there, and at the time karate wasn't really big in town. You know, there was limited. I don't think I competed until I was probably purple belt. Which is over halfway through the ranking. And then once the competitive stuff started coming through, just my life now changed. I didn't realize at the time, but the mental side and the person that it created a monster essentially. But it's a monster I'm extremely proud of, and
the proof is in the pudding, mate. You do have an extensive list of achievements that you've accomplished, even up until now, like right now. Like a lot of people sort of, they finish high school, they get a job, they go out, they get married, they have kids, and all those sort of things sort of dwindle away. The sporting side of it, the athleticness and whatnot, and then by the time they sort of get to our age, all that stuff is gone.
And it's not just in the career sense. It goes with everything. Like we'll probably get into it later. How I was brought up on the mindset: get a trade. Get that behind you. It's always something to fall back on. It's probably nearly some of the worst advice I've ever got now. Looking at where I've gone, and we might get into that later. But like my career now is something I never aspired to do. But it's created better opportunities for me and got me to where I am. And the whole reason that I chased that was to better myself. I'm addicted to that, that selfishness of being a better person in every aspect. And as time goes on, that becomes being a better father, being a better husband, and all the rest of it. So back in the day, it used to all be me, and like we'll go back to the karate. But as I progressed, I sucked at team sports.
Yes,
and I didn't realize at the time. I just thought I'm not a footy player. I'm not a soccer player.
Yes,
but as I grew older, I knew it was that selfishness of I needed to be in a solo sport. I needed something that I could sell in, because there wasn't too much that I tried as a solo that I couldn't pick up really quickly.
Yeah.
So and just the the camaraderie, and like I'm a great team player in a sense of, if we're in the Australian boxing team, we've all got our individual things. But as a team, I can't, because if I'm the worst person on the team, I'm great at team sports. But if I'm that little bit better than someone else and they haven't worked as hard as I have, I'm playing the blame game.
Of course.
There's a difference between being a sore loser and a bad loser. I'm a bad loser. I'm happy to lose to the better team, the better man, whatever in the ring. But
I think your better mindset, because you knew that you gave yourself 100%, and you lost to the better person. It wasn't because something else was lacking that got you the loss. No. And I can understand that point as well.
Yeah.
I actually myself too never really competed in any sort of team sport until I was actually like an adult.
Yeah.
That was purely because I didn't want to rely on other people.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that it was myself.
Yep. And it comes across the wrong way. People can see that as egotistical or whatever it is, but that's something, the alphanism in me, and my eldest boy's got that. We touched on that too late, but
of course.
I think it's a dying trait, and I'm extremely proud of it. And the struggle I have now as I'm getting older is keeping that.
Yeah,
like I'm doing the running events and whatnot, but so I've been lucky to find that other knack, but I'm extremely petrified of, like, I'm body able to do this stuff now physically. When I'm not, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But so the karate, I continued with the karate. I got my black belt just after I turned 10.
Oh, wow.
So at the time there was no age limits, and looking back on that now, I think it is too early. Like as a 10-year-old, you're going around spruiking that you're a black belt. I couldn't defend myself against me now.
Of course.
You get that accolade of being a black belt as a 10-year-old, when anyone could just grab you off the street and throw you in a car still. So I believe that concept, and I think it has changed now, because I couldn't get my second done until I was 16.
Yeah, sure.
So that's a more realistic age. As a 16-year-old,
definitely.
When you're a trained and disciplined in martial arts, you could defend yourself. But as a 10-year-old, I don't overly agree with that process. Now, at the time, man, I was cheering,
of course.
I was going to primary school, like kids were starting karate, and I had a black belt,
Yeah, of course, definitely.
But and then so that progressed into high school, and I kind of fell out of love with karate, but what kept me going was my competitive mindset. So while I was still competitive, I was putting the gear on, and I was lining up. We had Brant on the podcast, so he was. Like I competed in 3 world championships with Brant, 06 in Tokyo and Athens, and 2012 in Sydney. And every time I got through a few rounds. The first one I was under 18, so over in Tokyo, Shotokan World Championships, and in the back of my head, no weight divisions or anything there, because it's just under 18. And man, I had that one, in my head, I was going over, and I had it won, and I was going through, and I come up against a Japanese guy, and if I'd won that fight, it would have sort of put me into the finals, and it went to extra time, and just I went for the punch, and he went for the kick, and they gave him the kick, so. That's all good, and it didn't affect me that bad, really. So I knew on my day I would have won. On in a perfect world, I could have won that world championship, and then the first time when I went to Athens, so that was in 2009. So at the time I was purely karate. Karate was it, and So in Athens, it went to weight divisions because I was a senior then. So, I was having to cut to the under 65. And the transition into people only my weight, because I was sort of I wasn't a tall guy. And in the karate, it's, the distancing's a huge thing. And like the contrast between the advantages of my build for boxing and the advantages for karate are nil.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
To cover that distance, to break their distance and all that sort of stuff, the weight division didn't suit me. But there was only under 65, under 75, and over. So the heavies. So none of them really suited me. But I still got a few rounds there in Athens. Same thing. Didn't sort of matter too much. Mm-hmm. And then when Australia come around, I'd started boxing.
Okay, sure.
So I wanted, because of the contrast last time of having to fight against these big, tall, lanky guys in the same weight division, I needed better head movement. I wanted to be able to be in close not be hit.
Yep.
So I was like, rightio, and I knew that if we'd clash, because they'd entered, not so much throws, but when you have a clash, you've got 3 seconds to, get them on the ground or whatever it was. And I knew if they ran into me that I was going to put them on the ground, like I was, because physically I was so much stronger, but it was a distance thing. Even the speed wise, all that, I think I could match them on all that contrast, but I couldn't make my arms grow no matter how much I trained. They weren't going to get any longer. Yeah. So, that's how the boxing started. I wanted better head movement and all that, and I went to the 2012, and I probably had my best run. Like, I got a fair way through the draw. Always missed out on that last fight to get into the finals. But as Brant touched on, I made the team Kumite for Team Australia, and we got a bronze medal in that.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
But the passion. So in a team event, there's no weight divisions. It's just each country picks their best 5 fighters, and them 5 fighters go to war against the other countries. Yeah. So I think I got matched up against a heavyweight American guy, straight up, and I think we might have been 2-1 down or something. So I was like, it wasn't a defining. It might have been 1-1. Sorry, so it wasn't a defining fight. But if I'd lost, it would have really put pressure on the rest of the team to come through.
Yeah,
and I got the win, and it was like that experience was the highlight of all 3 world championships for me. Cool. And that's what, and it's so surprising because as a team we did it, but I'm not a team sport.
Okay,
you get what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's,
of course.
Yeah, it was really good. But that awoken the beast because I'd started boxing. I was still juggling. I think I might have had my first fight, and like my first fight was in Rocky.
Yeah.
And like I'd been training, and everyone knew that I was training boxing, but like I had a fight in Rocky, and I told my parents the day of it.
Oh, did you? You didn't want to tell them?
I was like, what if I get knocked out? Like
yeah, I know. Yeah, of course.
And so it wasn't until that sort of happened, and then I had that first fight and won, and from then on in, it was boxing. Boxing was it.
Boxing was it.
And I got something just like we sparred old school, man. We were the ropes around, a bit of concrete under the PCYC, and our coach was nearly 80-year-old. It was all just we were just all testosterone filled boys coming down and punching on, and but it made me realize you see a man in his purest forms. If you hit a man and it hurts him and he goes into that survival mode, that's when you see someone at their purest. And
of course, definitely.
It's something 99% of people will never experience. Mm-hmm. And as sickening as it is, it's extremely satisfying. Like,
of course,
when you hit someone in the ring and they don't like getting hit, I've won. Like I know it's just a matter of time now. I've broken your spirit, and the amount of underdog stories that we could talk about that like I've had people fly me last minute across the country for fights to fill in. I'm there as a fill-in fighter.
Yeah, sure.
And, but I'll go in there and get the win. But it's the mindset that I've got is my biggest regret would be losing to someone that I knew I could beat by not being fit enough.
Yeah, sure.
So I always kept myself
fight ready.
Yeah, well, whether I was fighting for an Australian title or fighting someone in Rocky, they were fighting the same fighter, and if they weren't ready, they were going to be in for it. It's I'm a pressure fighter, so it's my head's on their chest as long as they can be. So regardless, they can be a better boxer than me. That doesn't matter if their tank's not up to scratch because regardless whether they win or lose, they're going to be sore, and I'm going to be sore, and that's how it is. But that's the success for my boxing career, because whether I was fighting for an Australian title or a Joe Blow fight, it was the same fighter going into the ring, and that's what made me so successful. So I loved it, and I still do love it. It's just age has caught up with me. I had I had some pretty scary times, man. Like it's I fought over at PNG.
Oh wow, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, it was at Port Moresby, man. It's you hear all the stories, and it's 100%. Like, we got picked up, from the airport, and we're going in there, and as we're driving into Lamana Resort, like where the fights were, there's people on the street with, machetes tied around their necks, and the guy taking us from the airport transfers like, oh yeah, if you go for a walk, just stay off the roads, because if you get hit and no one sees you, they'll just kick you down the hill, man. Like,
you're kidding.
Crazy. And we get in there, and like for those that follow boxing, I was in the room with Rocky Hooney, Justice Hooney's dad.
Oh yeah, nice.
And I'm laying down, trying to have a sleep before our weigh-in, and there's Rio bars through the roof. This is a four-star hotel, man. And but yeah, like that was a fight that pretty much finished my career. I fought on the Friday night for an Australian title, on a pro-am undercard. Sure. And the guy that I was fighting I knew was good, so I wanted to be as strong as I could, for that fight. And so I'd replenished, I used to cut very brutally.
Yep.
And then I made that weight, and then I went back to my room. So, and then to go over to PNG, I didn't realise I was fighting. His name's Tom Boga. So he lost Luke Jackson in 2 Olympic qualifiers.
Oh wow.
And I didn't know any of this. I thought I was going over to PNG to to just fight an Islander boy. Like they can all bang, but their skill set's not the greatest normally. Sure. But I was going over to fight a potential Olympian. Yeah. And I wish I'd known that, because I wouldn't have taken the fight on the Friday night, because after the Friday night fight, I had to go back to my motel and cut 4.6 kilo.
Jeez,
this is I'm at a national level fighter. It wasn't as if I had kilos of fat hanging off me.
Of course. So you're constantly athletic. Yeah.
And I had to go back to my room, and I'd cook myself in a bath, just boiling baths with Epsom salts, and and Sammy used to hate it, because every time that I had to get in there a second time, every single time that I've done it, I've passed out.
Jesus Christ!
You see these people that are and the UFC guys and that doing these extreme cuts, and they get a 24-hour weigh-in. I flew over to PNG, weighed in at 1 p.m, and we're fighting by 7.
Oh, so jeez Louise! Hang on, let me just fix this a bit. Sorry, mate. Let's try that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Perfect.
Bet you're good there.
Yeah. Yeah, so was that? But that you said that Sammy knew that happened every time. So you've done that multiple times.
Well, not like normally I'd only have to get in once. So I used to, roughly in the Epsom bar. So I used to average about 1.5 every 20 minutes. So, but that's literally just sitting in a bathtub, turning the hot tap on, 500 grams of Epsom salts and cutting the weight. Yeah. But not too many times. I had to do it twice, because that was the final. Like that was literally hours before I weighed in. But a few times I had to get in there twice, and she wasn't happy.
What was your average? What was your normal fight weight? Like what were you fighting at?
So initially, when I started boxing. So there's a few different leagues. So I was involved in like Sun State Queensland League, and then their affiliation is with Global Boxing Australia too, and then later on there was Australian Boxing Council. So I could fight in all 3 of them.
Yeah, sure.
But none of them get you to the Olympics. So if you want to fight in the Olympics, you have to fight in the association. So AIBA.
Okay, yes.
But at the time, through my career, there wasn't too many association clubs outside of Brizzy. You know, it's a really metro. It's expanded now, but at the time there wasn't much association stuff.
Yeah, sure.
And then so you know, I had nearly 70 fights under Desi before I made the switch over, because I'd won all the like global league and ABC Australian titles, but never in the same year.
Yeah, sure.
So I wanted to win them all in the same year to show that I was top dog.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I went over to the association for the harder fights.
Yeah.
And, you know, I lined up with Mick Daly, who down in Gladstone. So he was affiliated with the association, and, you know, he was a Olympic coach, like the actual Olympics, and he's trained multiple Olympians. So, and, you know, he was great for my boxing career. You know, to get down there, you know, I'm multiple Australian champion, and to go down there and sparring, and he literally just shakes his head. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, how have you ever won a fight?" Like, he's just, because I'm just going in there, you know, a bull out of a gate, head down, just banging on, and you know, he's sitting there, and at the time, Reese Evans was doing really well down there. And he's just like, "Reese, bang, you know, overhand, blah, blah, blah." And he was just like literally scripting a book on how to beat me. And Reese just punched the shit out of me. You know, like just absolutely flogged me. And so that was a huge wake-up call to be at that level that I was, thinking like, "Oh, I'll come over here and get some harder fights," to, you know, the first bloke I spar in the gym just flogs me. You know? So
of course, yeah.
I was like, well, yeah, wow. And just,
so it was a good wake-up call in a sense.
Really good wake-up call. And just like to be able to just bang on with me hands and mental grit to actually get your feet under you, you know, throw these punches, all that sort of thing. Like, you know, set your punches up rather. Like I'd done so well through league and global and ABC, just with being the bulldog. That was my boxing name. You know, like I was going in there. And
I love it.
And I was mauling people, because that's how it was. It wasn't flash, man. I probably you know, had nearly 100 fights, and I've probably thrown 5 jabs. Like, it's literally just, you know.
Wow.
And
shit.
Until the association, you know, until I started fighting with Mick, and he's like, "Mate, if you want to set these shots up," and but Mick, he didn't so much agree with my style, but
it was working.
And he knew that I was fit.
Yeah,
he knew that my work rate, you know, and like we went away. I can't remember what fight it was, but you know, we got there, and old mates requested more rounds. Like, he's like, "Oh, we'll fight," because I think I was more experienced, but you know, he had the reach and whatnot. So we're trying to make it even. And his like his reason to benefit him was like, "Oh, well, let's go for a longer fight." And Mick and Shane Kitching, assistant coach, they're just like, "Yeah, right, like, is that all you want, or do you want more?" Because they knew there was no one on the circuit that was fitter than me at the time. So, and it was but it was just good having my first state titles for the association. I went in and you know, I fought Jesse Travers, and he was good, man. Like, you know, rocking up at the weigh-in in his Australian tracksuit and all that. And
wow, yeah.
You know, like I'd been at that level, but not in the association. So I knew these guys were the real deal. Yeah. And Kitcho, the assistant coach, he's like, "Mate, you're not going to beat this guy in a boxing match." You know, like, he's like, upset him. Yeah. And we'll see how you go. He's like, "I want you to go out and hit him low." I'm like,
okay, yeah, sure.
So you know, the strategizing, it wasn't just come out and be the better fighter. So he's like, "Yep, come out, blah, blah, and hit him low." Come out, whack, got away with the first one, all good. And then next time we clinched, you know, I went for the rip again, and like, I don't that wasn't an intentional low punch, and I don't think it was low, but he pulled me up on it. And Mick is in the corner screaming at me because Kitcho hadn't told him. So my assistant coach hadn't told my lead coach.
Yeah, okay.
And I've come out in the first minute of this fight, and I've load blowed this Australian representative twice. Anyway, so he pulled me up on it, and he's like, "Yep, blah, blah, blah," you know, like, yeah, pulled me up, but like, you normally get 3 warnings before a point's come off. So he's come straight out, and I've gone straight right, straight in the cods again. And that was it. Old mate's pulled me up, and he's like, "Mate, next time I'm taking a point off," because we weren't even halfway through this first round, and I'd smacked him low, really good twice, one incidental. Yeah. And but he was frothing at the mouth, this guy, to take my head off, and he spent the next 3 rounds trying to do it, and he that brought him straight into my fight, and it wasn't even a close fight after that. Like, this guy would have absolutely boxed my ears off. It would have been, he could have put on a display, but just with that strategizing and having a coach that knows his fighter and knows I
love that, mate. That's fantastic.
And it's people can say what they want about it, but I'm there to win a fight, and I won the fight.
Of course.
And I ended up winning, because that wasn't just a state title fight; it was going through the process. So I had that fight, and the next fight, and I think I had 3 fights over that weekend, but I won the belt.
Good on you, mate.
So I had an Australian representative fighting first up. And and I walked away with the belt.
Well, that's just taking advantage of the rules that you're allowed to do.
Yeah.
So the rule says you're allowed to low blow twice.
Oh, and even
get a point taken off.
Well, and I could have done it again. The ref could have taken a point off, because I think I won unanimous on all 3. But yeah. So then, going back to the PNG, because that was a defining fight in my career. So on the Friday night, I fought for an Australian title, and I won. So
did you? Congratulations!
That was my highest achievement in the association.
Wow, man,
that
is
I won
fantastic.
A CFMEU national title or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had to cut the 4.6 kilo overnight, and then hop on the plane. Fly over to Port Moresby, and
what was that flight like going over, mate?
I don't man, I can't even tell you the person I fought on the Friday night.
Yeah, wow.
I remember, going in and weighing in, and even like touching gloves, just feeling absolutely exhausted, so, and so we had that fight, and that was, I was nearly probably 90 odd fights in then. I'd never been stopped, and this, I didn't hit the ground, but this bloke stopped me, and it was like, afterwards, and the doctors sort of checking me over, and he's like, "Oh, mate, can you tell me who that is?" And it was our team captain or whatever at the time, Marcus Nelson. And like, it was on the tip of my tongue, man. Like, I knew exactly who it was, but I couldn't say it. And that's when I was like, this one's hurt me. It was and I had pixelated vision for 2 weeks after that fight.
Shit.
So, I went and got their head scanned, and that they found nothing, but that was, I knew something had clicked in me that day, that I knew that the damage was done, that I'd had, that my run for elite boxing was sort of done.
Yeah.
So then I come back, and I was still training. I wasn't training with Gladstone anymore. I think we were expecting Knox, my second boy. So, I'd sort of walked away from the elite side of boxing, but I was back training with Desi in Rocky, and just people owed favors too, I suppose. Just promoters and whatnot, and we're still ringing me. I've got this fight. Can you jump in? And I always just if you bring the misso and kids down or whatever and pay me way, I'll be there.
Yeah, sure.
And but all these fights, so I had my last 5 fights and 2 corporates were all title fights. So
really?
I had two fights. The corporate ones weren't, but the last 5 like league initiated fights were all title fights, all call up fights, like not fights that I'd gone away or whatever, like they were all, within the week sort of call-up fights, but I was winning them. So, going back to, that competitive edge, it was, while I was being competitive and still winning, I was going to keep doing it. So, I won these fights, but I was finding I was getting so banged up.
Yeah. You would be, mate.
Because I wasn't training like I was fighting anymore. Like, I was still doing dribs and drabs, but I wasn't sparring as say. So, body wasn't conditioned. My face definitely wasn't conditioned. Like, these guys weren't big hitters, but I was getting cuts and all that sort of stuff, and just taking a longer time to recover. So that was the last 5, and then I had 2 corporate fights with Betty Hawkes from the coach down at Fight Fit. Yeah. Just like I saved a charity bout, at the Gracie pub for him, because his fighter pulled out, and then he wanted to fight at one of Desi's shows, and I don't think I'm even trained like I think it was just a catch weight. I didn't even weigh in. It was just to sort of
just
save the show. And
we need someone.
Yeah. And, he'd helped, I'd helped him out. And then, I was like, oh, well, we'll have another dust up. But, and that was it, man. I've pretty much walked away from the sport because I'm too frightened of getting hit.
How old were you when you walked away from it? Roughly.
Like, I'm going to say 2015, 2016, yeah.
And how many fights did you had under your belt?
So, including I had 97 fights across all the different sanctions.
Yeah.
And the 2 corporate, and had a record of 80, 16 and 1, so 80 wins, 16 losses, and 1 draw.
Dude, that's unreal.
And then, the 2 corporate ones, I won both of them, but they don't go on your record.
Yeah.
So, it's 6 Australian titles, over that period, and
that's an accomplishment in itself, mate. That's fantastic,
absolutely crazy.
And to walk away with
just
pretty much 100 fights under your belt, that's crazy. But but then also to know that you needed to walk away at that point. That's the part that probably is the most important thing to take in, is that you knew that part.
It sits so well with me that I was able to walk away from it, with all the belts that I'd won. So at the end of every year, they get forfeited. Your Australian titles in November, and then next November you forfeit them. So out of all my titles that I won, I never lost. So I never got to defend a title and lose it as such. So I always had to forfeit them. Mm-hmm. So I'm extremely proud of that.
Of course I would be.
Yeah, so, and it was just good to be able to walk away. Like I know that I was in it too long in a sense of damage, but my pride took no beating because I walked out a winner.
Yeah, of course.
So that's So you finished your boxing career. You've gone, obviously you've still got this fire in you. You've got this will to want to accomplish things, to achieve tasks and stuff like that. And so you finished up your boxing. What did you do in the meantime after that? Like, because you obviously kept yourself very active. Yeah, definitely. So running is a huge part of boxing, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it when I was doing it. Desi wasn't so much a big advocate for it, but Mick used to get us with sprinting and doing 5Ks, time 5Ks, all that sort of stuff. And I got entered a Tough Mudder event. With my friend James Johnson and a few of us, but it ended up being just me and James Johnson going down, and he's not fit, he's just the average Joe, but we walked through the whole Tough Mudder together, 21 Ks, whatever it was. Like, this is way back 2012, I think.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, so I had a lot of fun, but I hated because we did it together. So I was like, yeah, come on, mate, like blah blah blah, like this, James was fit enough to do the 21 Ks, but like he probably couldn't have done 10K running straight.
Yeah, sure.
Where I was at the level where, the time that we did it in, I could have done it 2 hours quicker. So I wanted to explore that because I had a lot of fun, but I wanted to be competitive. It was easy for me.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, as fun as it was, I wanted a bit more. So I jumped straight in the deep end. I entered a Spartan race, 42 kilometre.
Holy shit.
So I'd never run a marathon.
Yeah, of course.
That Tough Mudder was the first half marathon that I'd ever done. But I was like, I can run forever. Running's easy. I knew no science behind the running or like I do now. But I entered a 42K race. I checked up the mandatory items. So I needed 1 litre of water in a Camelback, and I needed an emergency blanket and all that. Knew nothing about fuel, or because I just been jumping in the ring and fighting, man. Like
of course,
a Powerade after me fight. There's no pre-workouts, creatine, none of those supplements. Were I was not on board with that. So I jumped into this 42K race with, obstacles and, rope climbs and swimming and, all this sort of stuff. And I literally had a litre of water in my backpack. So I'd run out, and I was like about the 35K mark, and a friend of mine, Roy Hanford, like good friend now, but he's I met him on that race day because I was cramping bad, but I didn't realise at the time, but I was coming sixth. My first event, and I knew nothing about I didn't even know what the obstacles were. I literally just rocked up to see what it was, but I was cramping bad, and he gave me a Quest bar, I think it was. And after that, I managed to keep, to start running again, and I ended up coming 11th.
Nice.
But I was like straight away that I was not so much so proud of myself or any of that. I've got that little selfish bully in the back of my head to say like, why'd you stop? Like you could have just pushed that a little bit harder. So it's. I am proud of myself and all the rest of it, and proud of how I did. But the overpowering thought was, you can do better. You can do better than that. Like it's so. I come back and I did a few shorter races and whatnot, just more so learning how the sport of obstacle racing was going. At the time, I still wasn't real into the endurance stuff. Yeah. Just trying to be competitive at these Spartan races and. Like I was, but in the same sense as like I was with the karate with these big, tall, lanky guys. With the obstacle racing, I was finding I literally just wasn't quick enough. Like over these 5K races, it was really I could be a gun at all the obstacles, but these guys that are running 5K, quicker than that like miles quicker than I could do it was it was hard to overcome, and that's where I found the distance running was more up my alley. I could be more competitive in this distance stuff. So I started looking into the science of endurance running, the aerobic zones and all that sort of stuff to get better at distance running, and I actually started enjoying it a lot more by slowing down. Because, I used to, when I was fighting, it was 10K as quick as you can, and, I was busted, man, after that, like, all the time. When to now, like, with the science behind the endurance, being able to run, 3 or 4 half marathons a week and being fresh as.
That's crazy.
So that was the way I was going with it. I started doing a few more. The ultras in Spartan ended up going to 50Ks. Done a few more of them, and at the time then I started training at ETS at the gym, and they're really on board with the obstacle stuff. They've got their gym set up for that, and Shawnee Arnold was a mentor for me way back in the Gracie gym days, and we've kept really good friends, and they sponsored me to do these. So I was like, yep, sweet. And we built a community there, for our obstacle racing, and I ended up talking, I think like 13 of us.
Did you really?
These are guys that were sort of, they were doing weight loss challenges and all that, to coming out to doing a 50K race, And, a good friend of mine, I got him signed into it, and his partner had some real concerns. Like this is the guy who's literally never done sport or anything. Yeah. Like he's literally done a weight loss challenge, and I've talked him into doing a 50K race, and his partner was not happy. Like she was literally fearful for his life.
True shit.
And because
I mean, for an average person, the first go 50K, that's pretty mad,
100%. But I knew he could do it, and
that's good.
And the whole group didn't think they could do it, but out of the 13 we took away, 11 of them managed to do it in the time.
Yeah, shit,
but
that's awesome.
It took a lot of, so there's a 14-hour time cap. So as you were saying, to the average person, 50K is a huge amount.
Yeah.
But I'm breaking it down. I'm trying to make this race achievable to everyone, and just say you've got 14 hours to do this race. Like, you could literally walk your dog, 50K in 14 hours easily. You know, like that's the mindset that I was trying to get them. I'm like, don't think about it as a 50K race. Think about it as all I've got to do is manage, you know, a kilometre every 10 minutes.
Yep.
And I can get this done.
Get it done.
And, you know, because it was 2 25K loops.
Yep.
Some, man, hectic hills. I stitched them up hard. I didn't. It wasn't intentional. Like
it was didn't know.
And it was in the Gold Coast hinterland, and you know it was stinking hot and whatnot. And you know I think over the 50K we did, you know, like 2,200 meters vert. So you know, Mount Archer nearly 4 times.
Wow.
So
shit.
But I didn't know this, and yeah, oh man. But
funny story. I've told this one before, but I actually did that climb going up the Mount Archer. The Mount. What's the trail name of that one? I forget.
Zamia.
Yeah. I did it. Yeah, we did it. I walked up it with a pair of with me Converses on, me saddlebag, and one 600ml bottle of water, mate. And I had no idea what I was getting into. I was like, by the time I got to the top, mate, I was fucking dying.
Yeah.
And then my mate's missus had this fucking watermelon. I sucked the shit out of that watermelon.
but yeah, well, it's like going back to this guy's partner. You know, she was literally fearful for his life.
Yeah.
And
how did he do?
He finished it.
He did. Good on him.
He finished it, and like as much as I told them all, you know, to run your own race, because I said, like, if I was a strong runner and you were good at the obstacles and I ran it with you, you were probably going to hold me back because,
of course.
you know, I knew that I could run it, but if I was waiting for you. So I told them to do their own race, and they ended up catching up, you know, towards the end of the second lap, a lot of the guys, and finishing it together. But
nice.
They needed that then.
Yes.
You know, like they were 35K in. They'd only just made it back in the transition time, and they did need each other to finish it. And they all got it done, man. And it's it was a lot of them won't do it again, you know.
But
they achieved it. They were so proud afterwards. But you know, I'm like, there's another 50 coming up. They're like, don't, you know, no way, not in your wildest dreams. But but that race, you know, I'd spent so much time, you know, trying to gee everyone up and trying to be a good example and all the rest of it. And like, you know, I was going into it, you know, similarly, like I wanted to be competitive, you know, I'd entered, so there's elite, like, which is prize money. Then there's age category and then open. So, you know, most of the guys entered into open. I entered into age groups. I'm like, I want to see how I go here.
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, the elite guys take off 10 minutes later. I think it's 18 to 29. So they took off, and then, you know, my group. So it's 29 to whatever, 30 to 39. So I was done that. And so, you know, not really keeping track, like, you know, of numbers or whatever. And I come back from the first lap, and over the last obstacle, they radio through. First ultras coming through.
Bullshit, really?
And I'm like, am I winning? She's like, yeah. So when you're in the top 10 have to wear a white singlet. So then, you know, on your second loop, all the guys at the obstacles can sort of radio through. And so I've gone into my transition area, you know, I've filled all my packs up, and one bloke just didn't stop. He just kept running out, straight out onto his second lap. I was like, oh yeah, well, you know, so be it. And I knew if he had enough gear on that first lap that he'd be drained, because
of course.
Like I'd put another 2 liters in, you know, another 750 mil in the front, plus whatever lollies and all that sort of stuff that I wanted to take. So I knew if he'd had all that, enough to do another lap, that first lap has taken its toll on him.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
And it was stinking hot. So, you know, and I went out in the second lap, I think, like within 4K or whatever, I'd caught him, just pretty much straight up climb. And, you know, I knew after that, I knew I was winning.
Yeah,
you know?
that's crazy.
Everywhere that I could, that was in a big open space that I could look back, I did, and I couldn't see anyone. So I was going through, and then last sort of 5K is all around a festival area.
Yeah.
And man, the motions, because Sammy and the kids were down there.
Oh, beautiful, mate. So they were seeing that.
Well, they weren't there the whole day.
Oh, yeah.
So because like this race, still took me 7 hours or whatever. But that someone had called them through, say, hey, Ben's winning.
Yeah.
He's just gone out for his second lap. Like, we estimate him to be back in 3 hours or whatever. So the last obstacle was a cargo net climb over the main entrance.
Yeah, okay.
So like walking into the event, you literally walk under the last obstacle.
That's cool, yeah.
So I'll hit that cargo net. I knew I'm winning. Everyone's cheering, like, yep, blah, blah, blah. He's coming through. And I'm climbing over the net. And all I hear is, that's my dad.
Oh, really?
That's my dad. And I'm like, just tearing. I was tearing up so bad. But
man.
like the whole last 5Ks, I was like, I hope someone's told me, I was so proud of myself, but all I wanted was to win in front of my kids.
Yeah, of course.
And so, going across out there and they're screaming out, that's my dad. And I'm just bawling my eyes out.
That's beautiful, man.
But I'm scooting down the A-frame and, across the line and that was it, man. I was a winner. And that was I was so proud.
Yeah. And what was the feeling like, man? What was that? Was it just proud?
It was because like the first lap, I'd similarly done conservative.
Yeah.
And, I didn't, even when I knew that I was winning, I still didn't want to be like I was happy to let someone catch me,
sure,
and go off their body language because like I said, I've seen people in their purists when they're about to get knocked out, you learn so much about someone. So
sure,
it's hard to run past me and fake how good you are.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So I was banking on that life experience. If someone was to pass me, but that didn't come through. So I still ran across the finish line. And that was great, man. It was
what
so
an
good.
achievement, dude.
Yeah,
and to have your family there with you as well, and to go through that transition period there where you were, you're highly competitive with your boxing and everything like that, and then to sort of reinvent yourself, find something new, in a way, and then focus on that as well, win it.
Yeah,
that in itself is great to hear. Great motivation for people as well. Just because you finished one thing that you were heavily invested in doesn't mean it's just going to open up a door for something else.
Yeah, different sport. That's all it is to me. Like the mindset, the effort in training.
Yeah,
the grit, all that is the same. And that's I'm just so fortunate to have found another niche, and even like, and it goes right through to my relationship, like when things are getting heated at home, Sammy's just like, put your shoes on, go for a run up the mountain, like that Zambia track you're talking about, like that's my zen space, like whenever times are tough, I'm at the back of that mountain, but and she realizes that and supports that, which is super important as well, because endurance running and endurance training it takes up so much time, man. But
it does essentially. Like to get a decent one in, you've got to do hours and hours and hours and hours.
And that's that's the beauty, I suppose, of Rockhampton is it's so hot. So if I'm wanting to go and do that, I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning, to go and get it done. So then by the time I've come home, one, because it's too hot, but then the kids are only just waking up, so I'm not actually losing that time with the kids, but it's tiring.
Of course, definitely.
But so from that obstacle, like that the 50K stuff, what was next?
Yeah.
So there's an event, it's called True Grit, and they do an obstacle course race that goes for 24 hours. So it's like nearly a 12K loop with 30 obstacles, and you've got like a pit lane. So, if I'm the first pit and you're the last pit, you've got to run through my pit and I've got to run through yours. So it's just like a big S bend at the end of the lap.
Yeah, sure.
And it goes from, the start to the finish. So, 12K, 30 obstacles, and it's just as much as you can get done in 24 hours. So that was the next goal.
So that was the next goal. So what did you have to change up the whole style of how you did this? Like, was it much the same that you just true grit, knuck into it, go hard?
Definitely. Like I had multiple goals for the event. I'd never run over 60K non-stop. So that was the first goal. How I was going to be, after 9 hours, I suppose. That was there was just so much unknown of how the body was going to feel, but similar to that race, and like we were talking about before. Yeah. So I've rocked up, we've set up camp, and like there's literally 3 of us that are all doing the event, and then we had one girl that was just doing the 1 lap event, and she was going to be our pit crew for the night. Yeah, sure. And we've rocked up there, and like there's people with gazebo tents and all that with their whole families to pit them for the night, and just walking around the course, having a bit of a look and talking to these guys that, and they're all walking around, they're world champion. Yeah, wow. Because in 2017, they held the world championships at that actual event.
Oh, really? Okay, so, wow.
Everyone there's just repping their old singlets and whatnot. So, I'm just picking their brains a bit like, what do I expect? And, a few of the guys that, wait till the trees start talking to you and all this. And
I couldn't. That was trippy when you were saying it. Wait till the trees start talking to you. Holy shit!
And, just these hallucinations, and I'm like far out. Like how deep do these guys go? To get that. But man, it turned out that they're all just dreamers. Okay. Because the event started, and none of us had, like myself and Shawnee Arnold and Justin Morgan and Jem went down. And, this was Justin's first obstacle event.
Really?
So he'd never
done anything, and he's going straight a 24-hour marathon.
Forgive me, Justin, if I get your age wrong, but I'm just going to say he's mid-50s.
Yeah, sure.
But just a bull. Solid. So this was his first event. How does he know what to expect?
Of course.
And he goes out and smacks 100K still, man.
Jeez Louise.
And but yeah, so we all did, like I was saying earlier, before it started.
Live, yeah.
Yeah, there's a guy there, we've rocked up and we've set up camp, and literally we had a gazebo and a table, man, for 4 of us. Yeah. So and across from us, and this bloke's already in all of his gear. So our event started at 2 p.m. All the single lap races started at 7. This guy's ready at 7. He's in his full race kit gear, and we literally thought that he was doing the the earlier 1 lap runs, but no, he's stretching and he's eating and he's got stews cooking and all the rest of it, and we're like, this guy is going to be, he is intense. And we'd start talking to him, and what's your goal? And he'd tell us about previous years, and he's like, I'm hoping to get 8 laps. And, in the back of my head, my first goal was 60K, but, that little gremlin in the back is like, man,
starts itching again.
Yeah, you've got 100 in. 100 was that was all of our goal.
Yeah,
but
sure.
We hadn't openly said it, but, we didn't want to sound cocky, but in the back of my head, I'm like, I'd sort of love to get to 100. Anyway, so 2 p.m. race starts. I'm just motoring around, not really taking too much notice. Just I don't think I actually towed that start line competitive to compete. I was competitive with myself. I had my own goals, but I thought I thought this first one was going to be a learning curve. I'm maybe a little bit too outside my depth.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And so race started all good. I'm cruising through, and I'm feeling off pretty good. And nightfall come, it started to get a bit cold. You got to swim and everything in this, it's down Lower Portland, middle of New South Wales.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to ask where it is. Yeah,
it gets pretty fresh. I think that night it dropped down to 2 degrees or whatever it was.
Shit.
But we're going through, and it gets to about 3 o'clock in the morning, and as you cross the line, it's got your lap time and your rankings and all that, and I still felt good, so I didn't think I was in the mix, so I just kept plodding along. I didn't even take any notice of the board. But Gemma, as she was pitting us, she's checked up the rankings, and she's like, "You're coming in the top 10."
Shit.
And I'm like, "What? Age?" And she's like, "No, overall."
Wow.
And I'm still feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
And that little gremlin in the back, he's like, I've still got more to give. I'm like my fueling is working at the moment.
Yeah, sure.
Everything's all good. I've got, I'm over halfway through this race. Let's have a bit of a dig. So then I started taking notice of the screen, and so 2 laps later, I'd moved into 3rd.
Shit.
So I was overtaking more people than were overtaking me, and I was just trying to in my head, because I was lapping people. because you don't have to keep going. You can do 4 laps. You can go and sleep for 5 hours if you want and keep going. But so I'd clawed back to third, and that's where I ended up. The guy that ended up winning, he was still 2 laps ahead of me, but the guy that got second had only beaten me by 16 minutes.
Wow.
So, like had I towed the start line competitive,
I
could have clawed back second. So then, 12 months later, I had a different mindset, going to that race this time. But it had been cancelled, due to the floods and all that down there. And I was going down there pretty confident. I was like, yep, rightio, we'll go down there and start. And I started quick. These guys raced off the line, and I wanted to show them. I was right there with them. Like I didn't want them to be halfway through that first lap and just be like, like I'm feeling good. I'm like, I wanted them to feel like, how can I get rid of this guy? Especially if they've done the race before, because they knew I had the legs in me to go the distance. Yes. So, that was the sort of mindset. But after the floods, like this 12K course, like 70% of it was like running across mangroves.
Oh shit!
Like it was just crazy, and middle of winter and whatnot, and it was like you dive in. You had to swim across the dam. It was sort of midway through a lap.
Shit.
And I was coming out, and I just couldn't run. Like I hadn't had that the first time. I don't know if it was temp or the body sort of not holding up for me. But I was really locking up, and I couldn't end up battling that. So by the time the sun come up, and I felt good again and started going again. But that 4 or 5 hour gap through the coldest parts of the night was time that I couldn't get back. So I think I ended up coming 6th. In that second one.
That's still impressive, mate. And
on a much tougher field. So the same guy won again.
Yeah, sure.
But from the first year beating me by 2 laps, he beat. So we done the same amount of laps, but he'd beaten me to finish that lap.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So I was far more competitive still, but on a lot tougher field. So I still took the good with the bad out of that, but and I can't help what my body's going to do with the temp.
What did you use for like nutrition and stuff? Because like obviously you got to be ingesting calories and carbohydrates and stuff to keep for your body fuel. What were some of the things that you were having to do? Was it just drinks?
All drinks.
All
man.
drinks.
Yeah,
was
so
it?
it's like people don't realize how hard it is to eat when you're not hungry.
I could imagine that would be shit.
Like even just like it sounds easy enough to do, but like literally do 100 meter sprint.
Yeah.
Okay, and try and eat a Kit Kat at the end, and then do another 100 meter sprint. A minute later. Like you might get it that first time, but that second one, man, you won't get it down.
Yeah.
And that's how it is under threshold. With the endurance stuff, it's. So I find for me, drink liquids is I just drink all day.
Yeah, sure.
So it's a lot easier, and I sweat a lot, so I've got that.
So that's
hydration.
Mainly what you're doing. Just like was it like?
So the only solid foods I eat is just the chemist jelly beans.
Oh
blue
the
ones.
glucose.
So,
the
glucogel. Yeah. But otherwise, it's all just like calorie. So there's specialised supplements and sure. gels and all that same stuff triathlons and all that sort of use. But
I just thought it's interesting to know what to get a bit of an idea.
And everyone's is different, man.
Yeah, of course.
The stuff that I take down and the stuff that my teammates take down are completely different. And it works so much differently too.
I'd love to know. I'd love to know your actual mindset when you're doing these runs, because you got hours to yourself. And you're running, when you're jogging, and what's going through your head? Like they were saying before that you're going to be talking to the trees, like and you'd start. Do you get those were you getting those hallucinations or anything like that, or how do you keep yourself focused on the tasks that you're doing? Like me, I'll be honest with you, mate. Like that would be a mental challenge in itself.
Yeah, definitely.
Just to be able to stay on track.
Yeah. It's Well, it sounds weird, but I just study myself. Like,
yeah.
If I'm running behind you, I'll study your stride.
Yeah,
you know what you're doing wrong. Like, man, I can't even drive up. Like, Sammy's now like, how's their stride, babe? Like, because she knows I'm looking at them and I'm just picking it apart. You know, so like if I'm running, I don't run with music or anything like that because if I'm running with music, I can't hear my feet. You know, I can't hear if I'm landing too hard or whatever, and you really dial in. Like it's like a sixth sense, I suppose, like to your exertion rate. So like you dial in that much that I can run and know when my heart rate is too high and I need to slow down. Or
that's cool. I didn't even really think about that. Actually, that's amazing.
And it gets to the point where running in shade and the sun. Like, because in exposed sunlight, my heart rate jacks about 14 beats a minute.
Yeah.
So in exposed sunlight, I have to run slower because once you're in that threshold zone, you know, if you go above that, then it's all just, you know, in your muscle tissue, and that's not what you want. So
that's really intriguing, mate. The fact that you've narrowed it down, that you're that in tune with your body while you're running, that you know that you need to slow down at certain temperatures, certain.
Yep.
Just light.
Yeah, definitely.
That's crazy.
And I wish I'd known all that when I was fighting. You know, like coming through that old school boxing gym where there's none of this science, and, you know, like even just have that exposure to what Mick knew from the Olympics and all the training skills that he had. You know, I had none of that for the first 7-8 years of my fighting career. It was all just like, hit a bag, Jack. Like, that's literally what Desi would say, you know, and so I wish that I'd known all this scientific, you know, stuff, just about the threshold and, you know, like fighting off second winds, and because I never even used to like static stretch and any of that for my fights, because I knew the energy I was going to expose. So I always, you know, went in as fresh as I could. But then like an Olympian from down at Gladstone, Daniel Behan, you know, he used to come out like Mike Tyson. He was dripping in sweat. Yeah. You know, and I'm like, man, like, how do you – but he was fighting off a second wind, but I never, you know, adjusted to that during my fight. Like, looking back now, I would do that. I would do that. Yeah. But because it's like when you go for a run, the first K is the hardest, you know, like especially running up Mount Archer and all that sort of stuff. You're like, you know, I'll do that first K even in top neck, and I'll be like, I don't know if I'm going to get this today. Yeah. But then after that K, you're like, and, you know, you get to the top and you've PB'd by a few minutes, you know, you've just absolutely smashed it. So that's that sort of second wind.
And that makes perfect sense too. I know exactly what that feeling that you're saying that. Yeah.
So after that obscure race, and then, you know, this year they've canned it. So, you know, that was the only one of its kind in Australia. So, you know, hopefully it does come back, because I thought it was a great turnout. But, yeah, that led me to the next challenge. So and that was, you know, what event can I do that's going to test me? I'd done a few ultra trails, like 50 Ks or whatever, through the through the trails. Sure. But I'll learn a little thing about backyard ultras. Okay. So, the concept for them is it's still a trail race. Yep. So it's 6.7 kilometers. On the hour, every hour. So, you know, the quicker you finish your 6.7K loop, the longer rest you get. Yep. And then, you know, on the hour, every hour, a new lap starts. And like 6.7K in an hour is, you know, pretty achievable for most athletes, I'd say. Definitely. A few times. You know, like these guys go really, really long. And when you've got, you know, toilet breaks, food, your shoe change, all that sort of stuff, included in this, you know, you don't get a longer break, you know, for a toilet stop or anything, or you've got to go to the toilet on the run. So I entered into it's called Dead Cow Gully. It's they've just broken the world record for backyard ultra distance at Dead Cow. So it's down in Nonango. It's just literally through a cow paddock, man.
Is it really?
Yeah, they, you know, like your single trail cattle. Yep. It's just a slashed 2-meter section around the cattle trail, and that's a track around an old homestead. Like it's beautiful, and you actually run through a creek bed. True. So yeah, like you follow the cattle trail through it, but yeah, it's a pretty unique sort of course. But yeah, so I went down, did that. You know, the guys from the gym, the ETS, and that come down. We brought a bit of a team again, and we went down there, and it was a bit hard for me because you know I'd gone from doing 50K to that first year I did the 24-hour. I did 138 Ks. So
wow.
I ended up doing 12 laps and 360 obstacles, and I didn't fail one. Like I was so proud of that because you know, like some of the obstacles are easy, like swimming through a dam, but you know, when you've got 100 Ks in your legs, that's difficult. You got, you know, rock climbs and cargo nets and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, of course.
So it's like a mix between like a military boot camp, I suppose, but strongman as well. You know, you got to do tire pulls and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah, okay,
but,
cool.
Yeah, so to not fail any of those, you know, I was pretty proud of that.
Yeah, bloody hell.
But yeah, so coming from, you know, 50K race up to 138.
That's another whole level in itself.
Yeah,
isn't it?
And but then I was like, oh, you know, entering these backyard ultras, I was like, well, I know I've got 24 in me, so straight away, because of the distance, 24 hours is 100 miles, so 160 whatever Ks it works out to be. So I was like, you know, that'll be my first ticket off the list, and so you know, trained, you know, as we do. And we rock up to these events, and that was the first goal, I suppose. But yeah, and the guys that we were with, like we took a team down. We actually had a pit crew because after.
Oh, did you really?
So after having these 2 24-hour events, I realised to be competitive, I can't have my fellow athletes pitting me. Like if I really wanted to be competitive, because none of these other guys were doing that.
Yeah, sure.
You know, the elite guys, the guys that were winning had pit crews of 5+. Like I'm not talking just their partners coming down.
Yeah,
like they had people wrapping them in blankets, you know, like the proper. And so yeah, we didn't have that. So I thought for this Dead Cow Gully,
you do it right.
Yeah, we do it right, and you know, a few of the girls and that from the gym come down and pitted us, and you know, man, how good.
Yeah,
it was so good.
True,
but it was I wouldn't go in a big event now without the crew. Without that, definitely. Yeah, just having everything ready. It was so good. But so going down there, but I didn't realise, like in my head, you know, slow running with a bit of walking was going to put me right around that 48-minute laps.
Yeah, sure.
And that was you know, that was pretty comfortably. Like I was managing, like, but as we were going, and I wasn't really faulting on that. Like it was always just 48 minutes, and that would give me enough time to, you know, do everything that I needed to do, toilet, nutrition. Like the pit crew had most of that, but yeah, like reapplying chafe cream, changing my shoes and all that sort of stuff. There was a few little extras that I had to do, so managing that fine.
Did you find that if you braked too much that you'd get like a lactic acid build up or anything? It wasn't too bad.
So
like you could.
My mindset was walk the hills.
Okay, sure.
So it's like run, walk the hills, and it managed to be pretty much run 2K, walk 1K, which was actually through the gully. So that wasn't so much hills, but it was like a sandy bottom.
Yeah, sure.
So I didn't want to be running on the sand.
Yeah.
And then I'd walk for a K, and then I'd run 2K along the creek, like along the upper creek bed. So it was all hard dirt.
Yeah.
And then the last last 700 meters, I'd walk back to the back to the camp, like the transition. So that was working well. Well, it was working well for me. It was good. So that was working right up to about maybe 16 hours. So at that stage, whatever that works out, over 100 Ks.
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, the legs were feeling it, but like that's what people say, you know, to me all the time. Like, how do your legs do it for so long?
Yeah, I guess that's the good question, isn't it?
But your legs don't hurt anymore, like after 50K. Like your legs are sore after 50K. It doesn't matter how fit you are. Like everyone's, you know, everyone's legs are going to hurt after 50K.
Yeah.
And like I get to a degree of these guys that are going super duper long, but for me, the difference in my legs at 50K and 100K is no different. The next day, definitely.
Yeah,
you know, the fatigue wise sets in, but as I'm actually running, I don't feel much difference in 50 to 100K. But Yeah, so the 16-hour mark, and two of our other guys had dropped out at that stage. So, and I was sort of like, you guys go to bed, kind of thing. Like we're right, and then in the morning, you can give the girls a break, and like Shawnee Arnold, he was doing it with me, and we were going long. And then like it was funny. Like the night coming. This is Nanango, man. Like it was cold.
Yeah, I done a service down at Nanango. There, it's cold and barren.
So it's and in the middle, like it's Dead Cow Gully, man. Like it's a gully and a station. It's
I love the
open.
name.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. But so we're going along with that, and man, the change. Like at 16 hours, I was confident. Even the guys out in the race, like, oh yeah, how you feeling? Like they're trying to be as positive as they can. Like I could see these guys, men and women, were breaking.
Yeah, sure.
And I was like, yeah, like I'm confident I can see daylight. Like this is all good. And then it got to like maybe 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And like Sean's still there, just in a shirt and pants, and like I changed into my compression top. I had my thermals on. I had a thermal like a balaclava sort of thing.
Yeah, okay.
And I was still walking up to the start line every time, just absolutely shivering.
True.
And no one else was,
Yeah,
like
okay.
So, and with that, so because I was still coming in that 48 minutes, I had that 10-minute break to fully cool down. And so the start of every lap, I wasn't able to run off the start line like I was when I was fresh.
Yeah.
So then I had to change my game plan, but then I couldn't do a kilometre walk or kilometre run. Like it was going to throw everything. So the first lap that I couldn't physically run off the start line was a 55-minute lap. So it drained 7 minutes straight out of me. I was like, yeah, well, whatever, like the next lap will be better. Like it was just, let's see daylight. And then, replenished up and went out again. And like me and Sean had this, like to do these events successfully, eventually you need someone to run with, I can run till I'm fatigued. And then if you wanted to run till you were fatigued, we need to work together. We're slow pace. So me and Sean, we had the goal to do that from the start, but on the day we were still very different. Like some laps he'd pass me and then I'd pass him at the same spot. Like it was weird how it all worked out. But towards the end we started running together, a lot more. And like this lap I'd sort of just set off. I know he'd set off and because I couldn't physically run off that start, so I was a bit behind. And then I caught him, and then kept going around, and I didn't realise that he'd turned back.
Oh, okay.
So and I didn't realise, and then I come around, that lap was even slower. It was 57, 50, 58 minutes, and I didn't have enough time to go because you got to cross the finish line, then come back to your pit.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I physically didn't have that time to come back, and I knew that like I could have just went out to go again, but without the food and nutrition or whatnot, I knew
it would have dropped you.
Yeah, well, I knew that I wasn't going to come back from that point.
Yeah.
And so I finished my 22nd lap, and I started my 23rd, but I turned back.
Yeah.
So it was disappointing because I knew I had gone further than that before with obstacles through mud and all the rest of it. So I knew that I had distance wise it was a PB for me. But yeah, time wise it wasn't. But like what I learnt was that I'm not quick enough. Like there's these guys that just set the world record. So like these guys went for 102 hours straight.
Jesus Christ.
600 and nearly 680 Ks.
Holy smokes!
And like it's 4 days without sleep.
Jeez.
All the rest. He
would have been talking to all the trees, mate.
Yeah.
Out.
So
that's crazy.
That and they're doing that. But the guy that set the world record, Phil Gore, like he'll average those 48-minute laps, and then if he wants to have a shower that lap or a sleep, he just goes out and smokes a 35-minute lap.
Okay. So he's
his speed is
he can put more in it if he has to even later on.
Yeah, he just puts the afterburners on to come in on a quick lap when he needs a bigger break. But
that's impressive.
To be able to go out and smack nearly 5-minute Ks when you've got 300 kilometers in your legs is phenomenal, man.
For sure.
That's something that I'm miles away from, and I don't know if even with my mindset, if I can get there as a non-professional, there's some really good, there's some good runners in Rocky,
of course.
Reese Williams, he went down when we did our Dead Cow, and he got like 40, maybe 41. I think he ended up getting, which is that's huge. He went down to the Masters, and he ran into some of the errors like I sort of did that couldn't be helped, but man, he'll do well. He's crazy.
I guess a good thing for the listeners to get an understanding of you personally as well. At any of those points when you were doing those runs and you're doing even your boxing, do you have any doubt in your mind about anything that you're doing? No. Do you feel any doubt at all?
So
you know how people go through a point where they're like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah, definitely.
So you that's your driving force.
My driving force is I'm only going to get beaten by a better athlete.
Yeah.
So that's it's and I'm cool with that. If they're better than me and they win, then what regret could I possibly have?
Because you gave your 100%.
Exactly.
You did everything that you could possibly do.
Exactly. So that's, and even like when the elements don't line up, like especially with this endurance training, man, all that nutrition, that it doesn't. It's like coffee. It's like coffee on steroids. It's some days you could be taking the same satchel on every single run, and then that one satchel, man, you'll go and scrub. You're paddock dumping bad, but and you can't. There's nothing that lines up with that. So sometimes things just don't line up, and and it happens to the best guys. Ryan Crawford is another. He's a fantastic backyard runner. So him and that Phil Gore, they set a new Australian record. The year that the world record got beaten, they set a 76 hour, I think it was.
Wow.
Australian record, and he's a huge, if one of two. Phil Gore, Ryan Crawford are probably the best backyard runners in Australia, in my opinion.
Yep.
And but Ryan Crawford, he has some like issues, like the year before he just couldn't stop urinating blood.
Yeah, wow. Okay, shit.
So it gets pretty hectic.
Well, I can imagine it would, mate. Because then you also, I'm guessing you'd be battling the fact that you'd be going through like a catabolic state with your body as well. I'm probably assuming you would lose a lot of weight over that period of time. So you could have with the amount of fluid going through your system, trying to maintain that stuff, you might be getting some kidney issues there, bladder issues. I don't know. I'm only assuming from what I'm hearing,
plus the sleep deprivation.
Yeah, sleep. Of course, definitely, 100%.
In these elite sort of guys, it's not the sore legs and the body giving up on them. It's the mind, and they're hallucinating and all that out on course to the point of ringing emergency personnel because they don't even know why they're at that event.
Yeah, so wow, holy smokes.
And it's full on.
It makes sense because like I was saying to you before, like I've had those couple of those days there where I've had some sleep deprivation, nothing to do with like any exercise related, could be work related or just because I partied too hard. But like but I've had those moments where I've had those big days, lack of sleep, nothing like like all nighters, whatever. Go work through the next day, and you do not just a hallucination. You'll become like it feels like you're drunk, like a drunk state as well. Like, and you're not even I haven't had anything to drink. Yeah, I'm just. It just feels like it.
Like these guys are that conditioned, as they're coming up to the finish line, eyes are already closed, like they're sleepwalking.
Yeah.
Getting their body ready to immediately fall asleep. Like
that's crazy.
It's I've got no experience with that. Like I'll come and finish my lap and kick back in me chair, and try and relax as such, but like. There's no way I was in the position to nod off for 5-10 minutes, and they're doing that, for 4 days straight. They're having those little 5-minute power naps to function for 4 days straight. Man, it's absolutely crazy. And I take my hats off to any of the guys that are can get to that position without being professional. You know, like while you're still battling a job, like I've got the luxury being a train driver that I work all hours of the night. So you know, like
you're conditioned in that sense as well.
You know, at 2 a.m. in the morning, I've got no dramas of being able to get up at 2 a.m. and function because I have to do that for work all the time. You know, but like if these guys that are working 9 to 5, you know, if you're still up at, you know, like I go to bed not tired really as such, like just because I've got to sleep.
Yeah,
you know,
your body you need to do your 8 hours or whatever you want to do.
Yeah. So whether, you know, if you're a 9 to 5, if you're still up at 11, you know, you're shattered the next day. So, I think it's like to get to that level and not be professional is so much harder. And I think being in the position I am at life, I honestly don't know if I can get there to be that. Yeah. So, and I don't know whether I'll be happy to just keep competing in that without being able to win, or whether I'll have to find another avenue. Like,
of course.
Like, even though I'm competing with myself, I think I need that prize. You know, I need something to gain out of it. So I haven't hit that barrier yet.
Yep.
And you know, I've only really done the one, and so you know, watch the space, man. Who
I love it. Yeah. So that's what. Yeah. So the idea is that you're going to sort of continue maybe down something that sort of avenue style. You think? Or?
The obstacle stuff is where I want to be at because you know I've never been that quick.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I think these like just completely based running events don't suit.
So yeah,
such.
Sure. Yep.
So
okay.
But with the obstacle stuff, you know, like I just got that happy medium of like I'm an okay runner, but I'm also you know pretty strong at all the lifting stuff and all that.
Sure.
Whether so that I think that's my niche. I think that's the way that I want to go, but I need the distance side of it as well. So because I need the fatigue, the fatigue aspect, you know, because I've got that grit, and you know I just love tapping that mongrel, like it's right there. And
you made a really good point before we went live. You said to me that you know some people might see you as coming across a bit arrogant.
Yeah,
and the way that you described it to me was perfect. It's not because you're coming across arrogant. It's because it's your drive to want to succeed and do a better thing.
Yeah.
To the average person, that may seem arrogant, but it's not the fact that it's because the level that they're sitting at is an encouragement level.
Yeah.
Whereas you're above that already. You're wanting to drive further. So anyone sort of looking down below that would see that as being arrogant. But it's not. It's not. That's got nothing to do with the point.
Yeah, they see that you've achieved those goals already, and you know that you being disappointed for wanting more, like you know you should be happy at the level that you're at. That's not the case. I'm not happy until you know I'm in the stars, and if I can push myself to get there across, and not sport, this is across all aspects of life. You know,
right,
so like like going back to what we were saying earlier, you know about I grew up in like my family's always been in business.
Yes,
and you know it's always you know grew up you know. Pretty much like just that old school work hard, get ahead mentality, you know, like, you know, it's a sort of work smarter, not harder. That wasn't a thing in our house.
Yeah.
It was like if you want to work hard, you've got to put in the hard yards.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, you know, I went out and did my trade. I worked for Dad, you know, doing the skip bins and the scrap metal and all that sort of side of it.
Yeah.
And but yeah, you know, like I had a family business. I had a comfy blanket, you know, that I could have just sat on, but that's not me, you know. I'd finish my trade and
Is this hello, darling?
We've got a secret guest.
No, a little special guest. Hello. Oh, beautiful.
But
how old's your daughter?
Just turned 2.
Just turned 2.
That's me choking up. So you know, I did my trade with Dad, and we're building the skips and you know the grabs and all that for the excavators and whatnot for the business. But it's pretty much as soon as I got signed off, you know, I was, you know, I just wanted to. I had a trade now, you know, the mines and all out of there.
Yeah, sure.
I wanted to earn some money.
Yeah.
So you know, I got a job with John Holland and, you know, building the construction stuff from the Curtis Island project, and you know that they sort of went into receivership, and you know, then I went out to the mines, and I mean, I thought I loved being a boilie, you know, like I loved building stuff and all that, but like chasing those bigger things, I realised that it was just the guys I was working with, you know, like, so I've always worked with a young group of guys that I made friends for life.
Yeah, sure.
Through all my work, and most of them, you know, I keep in contact with a lot of them still. But so I went out the mines and I was working 7 and 7 that away, and 7 and 7 was great considering I was doing 6 and 1 in town.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and then I had just talking to mates, and they were working in the sheds at Horizon, fitter and turners and whatnot, and they when they went under or whatever, they closed up the shop
or the workshop, whatever it was.
Yeah, they offered them train driving, you know, traineeships and they were right on their long service, so they're like, oh, well, I'll just do this train driving gig and then get my long service and then go out the mines as, you know, fitter and turners, and so they did that. And they're still doing it.
Wow, that's cool.
And that's what they said to me. They're like, man, you ever get the chance to get on a train, do it. I've got no interest in trains, man. I never in my wildest dreams thought or anything I'd be a train driver, but some traineeships come up at Pacific National, and I put in and I got in, and it's been the best thing I've ever done. You know, like it's just such a rewarding job. Like, I'm not sucking welding fumes in. Like, man, working out in the mines. Oh, of course. There's no boilies out there, 50-year-old, you know, still welding digger buckets and all that. And you know, when you do have to come back to town, the money's not there anyway. Like, you know, it's only a good paying job if you're out in the mines and whatnot. You know, there's literally guys that I work with now that's all they've done.
Yeah.
You know, like they're in their 70s. You know, they're past retirement age, quite comfortable, and they're still doing the job because they're able to.
Yeah, of course.
You know, that's what everyone said. You'll get bored. You know, you'll get bored sitting on your ass driving trains, blah, blah. And it does get boring at times, you know, but longevity-wise. It means, you know, if I can still kick a footy around with my kids, you know, when I'm 50, like all those sort of things that, you know, a lot of people can't do, then, you know, sign me up and, you know, earn more money than, you know, I ever have sort of thing.
Yeah, no, that's good.
It's ticked every box for me. So.
And that's where it leads you to now. That's where you've had this opportunity to go over the other side of the country.
We're literally packing up and moving our lives, and that's the thing. There's no comfy blanket in my closet, mate. There's
and that's proof in the pudding.
And that goes across everything. You know, at the end of the day, if an opportunity comes up to be a space engineer tomorrow, and it's something that suits me, I'll go for it. Like, you know, and that's something that a lot of people don't have, and something I can still respect. Like, some people just aren't wired like that. But
of course,
I am, and to be happy within myself, I have to chase these things.
Good on you, mate. And I'm an advocate for that too. I think that's great. If it's worth, you know, give it a shot. If you've got this thing in your mind that you want to have a crack at something, go for it. What do you got to lose? You only got everything to gain out of it.
Yep. And when I was young, my everything to gain was to be a better athlete.
Yep.
And now it's to be a better husband, to be a better father,
yes.
you know, to be a role model, I suppose, essentially. Like, I was selfish when I was young. Like,
as we all are.
Yeah. But my whole drive was to be the best for me. I even as it was, I wasn't interested in being a role model because, you know, being a role model could have hindered my performance. So I'm like, I was going out to win. Like, if like we were saying before, I was fighting dirty. You know, I was fighting dirty when they can think what they want. At the end of the day, I went home with the belt. You know, like,
of course,
and I don't falter on that. I don't regret any of that. Like, that's how it is, and that process has made me who I am now, and it's and I don't regret it. I'll never regret the alphaness of everything that I've done, even if it has come across the wrong way.
But the intentions are good.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
And I'll openly prove that. It's not like I'm going out and doing these things and it's all getting said behind the back. Like, if anyone sits down, I'll tell them why. And
of course.
Yeah. So.
Mate, that's some really good advice for people for you to give out to people, and I think it's great for the listeners to hear about that stuff. And I appreciate the fact that you came in on short notice, mate. I know you guys are in the middle of sorting your stuff out, but it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you very much for being on with us today, mate. We do actually, so all the guests that come on, mate, we usually give them a nameplate. And it's got your name on it, Ben Bowers. I sort of ran all this together really quickly.
No, it's all good.
But I got it downstairs for you anyway, mate.
Good. I appreciate you having me on, and thanks for getting my journey across, because there's a lot of people that only know me for that boxer.
Of course. Yes.
But how I got there, man. A lot of people are probably learning today that I do karate.
That's right.
I fought in 3 world championships for karate. But having that Australian title boxing is more of an accolade, to the general public.
Yeah, that's right.
But they don't realize how I got to that stage, and
all the other stuff leading up, but then even after that too, they sort of, they don't understand the commitments and everything that you're involved in afterwards, and the drive to keep going, and the other stuff that you succeeded in the meantime.
And the luck, I hate that. You're lucky that you're still able. I'm like, you've got no idea. But a lot of people will learn that. If they are listening, because it's a hard thing to be wired how I am, because society doesn't always, it can come across the wrong way, and I get that. But I think at the end of the day, if you keep striving to keep that little bully in the back of your head busy, I suppose, eventually you'll come out proud of yourself, and that's how that's how I am, and I've got to where I am today, because. There's, like I said, there's no comfy blanket in my closet, mate.
Yeah.
That's
a great thing, a great motto to be by.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So and I'll live my life. Hopefully like that, and who knows what's next, man. That's the exciting thing. Well, and I don't know, and Sammy doesn't know, and it's just who knows.
No, well, I'll be interested to see what the next stage is for you, mate.
Cheers,
and
man.
When you come back over to this side, I'm sure you will be catching up with the family. We'll do the family barbecues and stuff again. We'll definitely touch base, get you on again, and hear some more, see what's been happening, bro.
Sweet, man. I appreciate you for having me, man.
You're welcome, dude. All the best, Safe travels, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks, man.
Cheers, mate.